So hey, well, I'll try this. Welcome to the first episode ever of Deep State Mojo YouTube TV. I have my special guest tonight, Jim Herkimer, uh, right-leaning conservative. We'll say conservative. Not. We won't use the word Republican. How's that?
Okay, we can. Yeah, we can go with that.
Okay. And we all know about me. I am, as we kiddingly refer to me as what?
My socialist friend.
There we go. Socialism, right? And we're going to chat about politics tonight. And I think we want to, here's the deal. One of us may say something that might offend you. But you know what? That's okay because this is my show. So, I'm proud of so I'm going to look through this. Yeah. So I'm proud of our friendship.
Absolutely.
I think we have gone beyond this just bitter divide. And tell me what you just said about the Republican Party, because I think I like that about it's not what it was. There's
So I was a lifelong member of the Republican Party, and in 2015, in 2015, I'm like, this can't possibly be happening. In 2016, I was like, holy shit, what just happened?
Right.
And, well, let's see what happens. And it only got worse, as far as I'm concerned. Because it really went from a situation of let's deal with some problems, and the whole party sort of was let's enhance us. Let's make us the winners here and everyone else the losers.
Right.
And so that was where I really took that step away and said, okay, the Republican Party doesn't represent me anymore. Unfortunately, the Democratic Party doesn't represent me either.
Right.
So where do I live? So I live somewhere in no man's land, which is probably 50% of the electorate in the U.S. They're sort of not really Republican anymore. They're not really Democrat anymore. So where do we live? And who is that individual that's going to represent us?
Right. And so I'll tell you my take. And I went around and people were like, "You're crying wolf," and this whole thing. But I warned people. I said, Trump gets into office, even if he's just a one-term president, it's not going to go away.
Yeah.
It's going to create a mess. And when I look at the Republican Party today, and you're not one, and to be honest with you, while I'm a Democrat, I'm not real happy. I'm not happy with Joe Biden. Let me clarify that. I'm not 100% happy with Joe Biden. And I think from an outsider's perspective of the Republican Party, I think that it's turned into a cult because anytime you even quit, so you can say what you want about Democrats, right? But I don't have blind loyalty to Joe Biden. And if I say I'm not happy with what Joe Biden has done, I'm not going to get the wrath of God from Joe Biden or the leaders of the Democratic Party saying, you better get in line and worship me. Because see, this is my take, and this is overused cliche, but I think the Republicans became party over people, or it became a political party over the people that made it up.
I'm going to take it a step further.
Okay.
And I'm going to say it's power over the people.
Oh, yeah.
It's how much power can I gain? And sort of, again, my perspective is worth its weight in salt. Donald Trump filled a void that was created when the Tea Party movement sort of gained some traction.
Right.
And, they sort of drove the splitter into the log. And, that's a good Mississippi analogy for you, but, that's sort of what drove the splitter. And then, Donald Trump is an opportunist.
He's a grifter.
All he is,
yeah,
an opportunist.
He's a con man.
And, and he sees his opportunity and, grabs the hammer and knocks the split or splits the party, splits the log.
So I look at Trump and I think about how close I came to voting for Ross Perot back in the 90s. And I think about, I almost bought into it then. Now, I don't know that Ross Perot would have been as bad as like Donald, as I think Donald Trump has been, you know, and again, I say because there's people going to watch this, and if we say Donald Trump was just Hitler in drag, they're going to be like, oh my God, you know, and I'm going to get death threats. So, but I think that for me, I was so close. Now, I would love to see, and it works everywhere else in the world, why we can't have a multi-party other than just Democrat and Republican.
Right.
I think, you know, there's enough, and again, I go back to this, that I tell my kid this, that part of being patriotic is acknowledging the flaws, right? That ability to be able to say, yeah, I don't so much agree with you. Now, you know, you and I, when Obama was in office, I was like, and I think there were times I didn't agree with Obama. I think the Republican Party, even like going in to like Trump before, like you say, 2015, became this almost cult-like, where if you disagree,
it's still like that.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
it's still like that.
Well, so
but I think that's going to be to the demise of the Trump party.
Yes, and what scares me is that right now the Trump party and the Republican Party are kind of interconnected. So, you know, the old saying, the devil you know, right? So I'm afraid what will come in its place. Now, what I would love to see is this common sense just take over the world and say, you know, enough of this crap. Let's work together. Let's do something to make it a better place.
And let's hold hands
and sing Kumbaya.
And wander back to Shangri-La.
And that's not going to happen. No, that's not going to happen. Right. So I think, by the way, did you see the major announcement that he had today? Everyone was talking about it was going to be, he was going to name his VP pick. Was it going to be Marjorie Taylor Greene or Carrie Lake? Actually, he announced that he's selling digital trading cards of him, of portraits of him throughout his life in business and politics and everything for $100 a pop.
There you go.
And he's like, buy them because they're going to go out soon, and you can trade them just like baseball cards. He's even pissed the Republicans off because they're like, look, I'm going with DeSantis now. And the scary thing about DeSantis, to me, is he's much smarter than Trump. To some extent.
Your shoe might be
smart.
But that's a whole different, that's another story. Never mind. Probably shouldn't say that because
yeah, exactly, nice exactly. Well, but see, there's also the logic that there's nothing more dangerous than an idiot who thinks he knows everything. And that's been Trump's problem. But I don't want to focus on Trump tonight. I want to talk about our political worlds.
Right.
And how is it that you and I can be these polar opposites? Like, you know, and I'll left hand is me, right is you. But we can manage to have these discussions, and we can laugh and we can chuckle. And I honestly think that there's got to be some way, and not going to the extreme of holding hands and singing Kumbaya, but I think, geez, maybe people could learn something.
I have a friend who's a political consultant, and she's one of the smartest people I know, and she's very good at what she does. And you will never know what her political party is. You can't figure it out.
Right.
And she refuses to take money from special interests.
Okay.
So, and she's been influential in local politics and state politics for quite some time. And I love the way she thinks, because she says, what is the problem and how do we fix it? Not what's the Democratic approach to fixing it, what's the Republican approach to fixing it, What's the problem, and how do we fix it?
Right.
And to me, that's where we should live, right?
And what's that's what problem? But that's what we had in the '60s.
Oh, absolutely.
We had Kennedy and Goldwater would go out to dinner together, and so after my mom passed away, I went looking through and I found this treasure trove of old yellowed newspapers, and they were falling apart. What was amazing to me was reading, like, the Republican perspective was, hey man, politics are done. We lost a good man. Whether or not you thought Kennedy was a good man, this was a father, a husband, who was shot down in the prime of his life, right?
Right.
And you hear some people talk about John F. Kennedy was not the great man that he had his sexual proclivities, if you will. There was some things going on there. And then fast forward to Nancy Pelosi's husband getting beat by a hammer.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I don't want to say, and this thing that both sides do it, I get sick of hearing that argument, right? Because if you look at, they were laughing. Ted Cruz and people were laughing about this Nancy Pelosi's husband getting somebody coming into his house and beating him with a hammer, right? And then it comes out that Ted Cruz's daughter, who is bisexual, by the way, attempted to kill herself in her house. Now, what and again, I don't want to come off like, well, the Democrats are perfect, but there wasn't a lot of laughter about that from the Democratic side,
no.
Right?
And I wouldn't expect there to be.
And so I think, like, the Trump version of the Republican Party, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Ted Cruz's, these folks, they've become these vicious schoolyard bullies.
Well, I think that's exactly what the problem with the Republican Party is that they're bullies.
Yeah.
To me, 2016 was sort of interesting. And I'm gonna kind of fall back, and I may have shared this concept with you before, but there's a little school, Appalachian State. You know where Appalachian State is?
Yeah.
They're little, football championships. They're a Division I, lower tier Division I football team. And a few years ago, they went and they played Michigan. Michigan was the top 10 team, right?
Right.
And they get paid $1 million to go up and get their asses whooped, so that they can fund their athletic program by the easy, giving Michigan the easy win and hoping nobody gets hurt.
Right.
And to me, it's just unfair. But they went up and beat Michigan. Remember? I don't know.
I remember. Yeah.
So here's this Appalachian State team taking a couple of weeks, putting together a game plan. They're smaller, they're weaker, they're slower, but they put together a game plan, and they went up and they beat the team that knew they were going to win.
Right.
And I kind of take that analogy to 2016. You got the Republican Party, and somebody managed to put together a plan. And I can guarantee it wasn't Trump because he's not smart enough.
Right.
But they put together a plan to upset the big dog,
Hillary.
And it was an excessive ego of the Democratic Party because they didn't put the plan in place.
Mm-hmm.
And they looked at it as everyone's going to vote for us because we're the nice people.
Okay. Yeah. But and as a Democrat, I was pissed off because I didn't think, like, Hillary, forgive me, okay, my Democratic friends, I didn't think Hillary was, I voted for her because it was her, Donald Trump, right? But I also feel like that gig was handed to her because she was a woman. It's like it wasn't, she felt it was owed to her. The Democratic Party felt it was owed to her. And rather than her doing any good for us as president, it was, well, we owe her. Because she stepped back and let Obama do it.
And I think it comes down to who has the right plan and who doesn't.
Right.
And I think that's part of the problem with the Democratic Party through the years, right, is they have great intentions. Man, I mean, they have great intentions.
Yeah.
Their execution lacks.
they're execution acts, but also here's the thing for me, and this is kind of like for me as a Democrat, and this is what pisses me off about Democrats and in power is they try to take the moral high ground, right? And if you're going to try to take the moral high ground, there better not be any damn skeletons in your closet, and there are. I think this business, and again, I think a lot of people, I think in some ways it was a mountain made of a molehill, but Nancy Pelosi getting her hair done at that salon.
No.
She gave them that, and she knew if they got a hold of that, they were going to lambast her, right? That's what they do. But then if you call Trump out for some kind of ridiculous behavior, yeah. But see, here's the thing. The other thing, Hillary shot herself in the foot when she called half the country deplorables. Mm-hmm. You can't win an election doing that. Number one. Number two,
you gotta go visit people.
Yeah, and they sold Trump as a man of the people.
Yeah.
As a man of the toothless hillbilly, who's gonna be partying down at Mar-a-Lago with Donald Trump any day now, right? And it's like, and people bought it.
And that's and they didn't buy it in 2020.
Yeah, they got fed up with it.
Yeah.
I think they got fed up with the shenanigans.
Yeah. It's the old, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what I was getting. Now I know, and I don't like it.
Exactly. And so, see, this is what pissed me off. A&E television. Don't one of my weirdest fetishes, for lack of a better term.
And you got a lot of them.
Is the first 48. Okay? So they go to police departments. Uh-huh. And it's like, well, when a murder happens, usually if they don't solve within the first 48 hours, chances are the odds go up that they're never going to find out who did this. Don't ask me why, but I only like watching the ones that are in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It is the weirdest thing, and that's the only one I like, right? I don't even like watching the ones in New Orleans with my history in New Orleans. I don't even like watching those. I just like watching the Tulsa ones. And they showed one that was the election night. That was like that took place on election night. Like they recorded it on election night. There's one guy, I don't even want to say his name because he just pissed me off. But he was bullying this younger cop. Oh, come on, you want to vote for Trump. And then they took him aside and they said, don't know what's going to happen. This could be the greatest thing for this country or the biggest train wreck ever. And I go, then why would you take that chance? You're gambling with us, with all of us. This isn't your personal experiment or your chance to bet. It's like that's my problem. It's like, why would you gamble on that? Because we all had to pay the price. It wasn't just a couple of us, right? It's like we all suffered for 4 years.
Well, we did, but there, and I'm not jumping on the bandwagon. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But there were some policies that were implemented that created now.
That created the monster that is Trump.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. But I'm also saying, we had some outstanding economic opportunities.
Right.
And I have a really hard time giving credit to an individual for economic success and economic disaster. Everyone right now, we're sort of in the economic disaster. I listened to a little bit of the economic forecast, the Chapman University economic forecast that was a couple days ago, and and the forecast is deep dive, recession in 2023. It'll be short, but it's going to be a steep drop, but it'll be short. And the take home is you can't dump. You got to pay the piper, and we're paying the piper.
Oh yeah.
And who put all of that money into the economy, free money into the economy, based on COVID as an excuse, but it wasn't Trump, it wasn't Biden, it was bipartisan because everyone's afraid that we gotta give shit away.
And in an earlier
otherwise, who knows what's going to happen?
Right. And in an earlier conversation, you brought up a really unique idea that I'd like for you to explain to.
Like, that means I got to remember it.
And so it was about, instead of giving cash, what if we gave people healthy food?
Yeah. So John, you know how I think about healthcare and health in our society, right? You know, we're the fattest nation in the world. We're the sickest nation in the world.
Yeah.
We have, you know, we're the only nation in the world that has a declining age, age.
Yeah.
You know, we're dying younger. Everybody's dying. Yeah. We're dying younger now than we were. You know, our rate of obesity is significantly higher than any other country in the world. And what do all that? What, you know, kind of what's the driving force to that? You know, and it's our lifestyle, right?
Right.
We eat terrible.
We eat crap.
We eat absolutely terrible. And if we would have taken the time to say, instead of giving everybody $1,000 stimulus check, let's give everybody a coupon that can be used for whole food, you know, an elimination diet. Let's do a 30-day elimination diet. And I'm going to tell you what, if this nation would have done a 30-day elimination diet, our death rate from COVID would have been half. It's my guess.
Okay.
You know?
Right. And I love that. I love that concept. I mean, it's like, that's thinking outside the box. And sadly,
no politicians
thought of that.
Well, they don't have big enough to even bring up that the nation is fat.
They don't have big enough balls, because they're gonna. That's like, just like Hillary calling half the country deplorables.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's, I think, a huge problem for us is we got to figure out a way. And again, and I would love to see it happen. I don't know that it will in my lifetime. Get this freaking money out of politics. No. You know.
Well, who are we voting for in California?
Well, Gavin Newsom.
No. But think about it. Who's driving the election in California? The police union, the fire union, the school
teachers,
union, school teachers union. You know, your vote, my vote, isn't driven by what our community needs.
Okay.
You know, it's really driven by, you know,
well, who's got the money? Yeah.
And who has the influence in California.
Right. Well, so for me, and I think, like in this last election cycle, just last month.
Yeah.
What gets me, and I think if the Republicans don't take a lesson from this, is the Republican Party, as far as I'm concerned, was always about, like, we're going to stay out of your business. You have free will, but when you start legislating that you start just doing like no abortions against the law altogether, you're pissing people off. When you start saying and it's hypocrisy, and that's what gets me, is it's the party of, like, do your own thing and we're not going to regulate, but yet they want to go.
As long as your own thing is aligned with what I want.
Yeah, with Christian beliefs. Yeah.
And I have a huge issue with that.
Yeah.
That's my social reform, mentality, right, whereas as opposed to my fiscal conservative mentality.
Right.
That's where I fall. That's why I fall in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, look, legislating morality is wrong.
Yeah.
And it bothers me when they do that. Now, what got me and I've been reading a lot about this, is Young Kim, who is now our rep, is very much against women's right to choose.
Right.
Ran on that, and how she got. Now, I'm a little annoyed because Katie Porter was my rep, and then they redistricted it. And to be honest with you, I met. Who was running against her? And now I can't. Dave Min.
No.
So I went to a debate down at a synagogue, by University Synagogue.
Mm-hmm.
And I met Dave Mann and I met Katie Porter. I wasn't that impressed with Katie Porter. Now she ended up winning, beat Dave Mann, and now we have Dave Mann as the state senator. And to be honest with you, I like Katie Porter for what she stood up for. I think she's holding toes to the fire. Uh, what got me, I think, this last election cycle was it's not only Young Kim but Michelle Steele. Mm-hmm. And the fact that people voted for them now, like number one, Young Kim was running on, I'm going to lower gas prices. You have nothing to do with that, right? That's like me saying,
John, you're going to lower gas prices.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, that's not going to happen.
Can you do that on my way home?
Yeah, exactly. It's dropping. Let me see. Try it. Look on your way home, okay? Because that's what they run on. They run on this impossible crap. Now, on the other hand, you had Michelle Steele. Now, as a Caucasian, I was offended for Asian people, okay? Because Michelle Steele, her ads were terrible. It's like it came from a fortune cookie. It's like, what was that? My English may be broken, but my heart is full. And I'm like, okay, so Confucian says what? It's like that was such a blatant play. And I can't believe I'm the only one that offended.
Yeah. Well, you're a sensitive guy. You're a delicate flower.
Yeah.
You need to get a little thicker skin like I have.
There you go. Now, we'll see what they can do. I mean, I don't want to rule this out, but now I think right now what's fun, and I just wish I had some popcorn, is watching them. It's a giant bag of rats, and they're turning on each other. Yeah, and do you think, so your opinion, you think McCarthy's going to get in as speaker?
I do. And I'm not.
Do you think he's going to be happy as a speaker?
No, I don't think he's a happy person.
I don't. Well, no, no.
And I don't think he's going to be very good at it.
Yeah.
Because he's not engaging enough to create bipartisanship, and you're going to have to create bipartisanship in the House right now.
Yeah.
You have to kiss a whole lot of proverbial asses.
Yeah, but
he's not good at that.
He's not, and so the other thing that I keep hearing about is these indictments that are going to be handed down.
Let's just move forward.
Well, okay, but moving forward's great, okay, but when we have people who are implicit in that.
No, I'm talking. I guess let's take a step back. The January 6th, that shit needs to get
handled. Yeah,
it needs to be handled, and people need to be held accountable for their actions.
And
period.
And Merrick Garland and all, they need to stop dragging their asses. It should have been done a year ago.
Yeah, let's get this done.
And now with these texts, there's like Louis Gohmert, which I can't think of a more appropriate name. Okay, sorry, that was very that's mean. Okay, that's being a schoolyard bully. But all of these people, these texts that came out, they're implicit in that stuff. And and they keep saying, why are you making such a big deal? Well, like Trump when he says, burn the Constitution, right? It's like you took an oath. You're supposed to take an oath to uphold that.
Right.
So you don't get to play fast and loose for that. And now what gets me about Margie is her whole bit where she came up and said, if I was there, we would have won. And then she gets called out by it. Well, yeah, she spoke at a Young Republicans thing, and she said, if Steve Bannon and I were the ones planning that thing, the January 6th insurrection, or whatever we want to call it, we would have brought more guns and we would have won. Okay? Now, that is a blatant violation. But what gets me is she comes out and says, don't they know sarcasm? I'm sorry, that's not sarcasm.
That's not sarcasm. You and I are sarcastic.
Yes, that's sarcasm. That's sarcasm. But what she's talking about is just, but that's their game plan. And again, we've got to this place.
It's a schoolyard bully.
They're classless. Yeah. And so I go back to Trump when he ran. He kept saying, the world's laughing at us. Well, they sure as hell are now. And they were the minute you got in office. Yeah. They were laughing at us because you're a bozo.
Yeah,
and there's,
you're preaching to the choir.
Yeah, I know. And there's so many Trumpers in this neighborhood. It's scary.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I come, I have to be a chameleon.
Yeah.
Doing what I do.
You know, you bite your tongue a lot.
I do.
And I've learned to do that as well because there's people that will say shit.
And I let them talk.
But, you know, I've had students come in to work with me and they start going off on this. And I'm just like, you know what? The rule is we are considered a healthcare facility. I'm getting sick of the mask just as much as you are. The rules are you need to wear it. And you may be in a group home where you're exposed to this shit a lot more than I am. So, yeah, you're going to, you know, and I love the dirty looks I get from people when I'm wearing a mask at Target.
That which baffles me. But, you know.
But that's, again, Republicans, like, do your own thing. But they're like...
Do your own thing as long as it's in line with me.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's the whole point of this.
And that's...
I had my aunt said something the other day that really rung true with me. She says, you know, it's almost like everybody should think the way they do. And if they don't, then they're wrong. And I'm like, well, you know, I'm like, wow, you know, that's so true. And it's like, you know, again, we joked about me becoming Catholic, right? And again, there's my little, you know, rosary and that whole bit. And Orange County didn't burn to the ground, right? No. Nothing, no hole.
I felt some things shake.
Yeah, but I have no desire to have anybody else like be Catholic like me. And people have said, "You Catholic?" And to me, it's like, yeah, I'm going to shake it up from the inside. Again, it's like if this blind leadership that people are demanding of Trump. That's Jim Jones shit.
It's cold.
And I hear. And again, if you're listening, there's some prime real estate down in French Guiana. Buildings are still standing. The old Jonestown complex. Let's take Trump. That could be his new Mar-a-Lago. And he could take all these folks with him. And they'd be left alone. And they could do their own thing, right? Surrounded by jungle. And I'm not making light of Jonestown.
Right.
But that was a horrendous thing that happened. But I think that this Trump cult is like taking us down that dangerous path again. Now I think he shot himself in the foot finally.
Yeah.
And I'm even hearing people talk about this stunt he did today saying baseball cards, like tradable digital cards, like $100. There's like shit going on in this country that we got to deal with. And
No, and I think I think this last midterm election really demonstrated that while people will continue to feel like he has control of the Republican Party, it's sort of a sham. I don't think he does.
I don't think
anybody has stepped into the vacuum, but I don't think he has the control that he, you know, and you know, the influence. I mean, Herschel Walker. I mean, really?
Well, see, here's my theory on Herschel. I think Herschel started realizing, man, this job may be a little too much work for me, and started blowing that because I think he was, and I'll tell you why. I had a bet with somebody that who do you think's going to concede first, Kerry Lake or Herschel? Because we were like, you know, Trump's telling him to fight it. He's going to claim election fraud and all this. And Herschel gave up that night because I think Herschel realized he dodged a bullet. He was not equipped to handle that.
I'm biting my tongue right now because I don't know who's going to listen. You know, your 100 followers are awesome, but I just want to be a little careful.
Okay. Well, no,
because I just don't think there's.
Well, I'm not putting your address, or I'm not saying we haven't mentioned where you work or anything. So that's it. Danielle makes sure that I leave this stuff out. So there's nothing around here that shows my address, so people.
So let me change directions for a second because we've been talking about parties and politics, and I mentioned earlier that what differentiates political parties is action on and being apolitical for a problem.
Right.
So, what do you think is, what do you think is the biggest problem in California?
Cost of living. I mean, overall housing, unaffordable housing. You can't live in California. I think they're talking about all these things about like easing development rules, like in certain places, but that's not going to do shit. I think so. Cost of living, number one. I mean,
Okay,
lack of affordable housing.
Okay, lack of affordable housing. So we could look at it from a liberal perspective. We can look at it from a conservative perspective. But let's not look at it from that perspective.
Right. Okay.
How do we fix it?
So for me, it's like easing regulations to.
Well, that sounds like a conservative.
It sure does. Okay. But I think also, I think in some ways, so it's like easing those restrictions, finding some way to live that. Okay, I get it. The three-horned frog in some town is a rare species. We can gather up a couple of them, put them in a zoo, let them reproduce. When they get big, let them loose on society, right? I think there's a lot of things that are woefully overrated for reasons to stop building affordable housing. Okay? I think now, again, for me, it's like living in California. For me, I think I don't mind paying taxes for what we do. I think we have better roads. If you've ever driven on I-10 through Louisiana, like the minute.
I don't have my passport.
Okay, there you go. But this is one of the weirdest things. California and Texas have the best roads in the country. Okay? When you're driving east and you cross the state line from Texas into Louisiana, you'll see it's like, now Texas does it without exorbitant taxes. I don't know how they managed to do that. But the minute you cross that straight line, you got potholes, you're all over the place. And it's crap. And they used to blame that it was you only had to be 18 to drink in Louisiana. So
now it's 12, right?
Now it's, well, you can marry your cousin at 12.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. And that's not in the city, okay? That's in the backwoods. But they used to say that if you so Reagan and had withheld highway funds until they raised the drinking age.
Right.
But the roads still suck, right? So when I look at California, I think we get services that a lot of other states don't have. And there's a certain nicety that I feel like I get my money's worth in my tax dollars. Okay?
Okay.
Now, that's someone who doesn't have a lot, again, I don't have money, so I don't mind not having it, right? But if somebody, like, works hard, works really hard for their money, and to have it just taken away for nonsensical reasons, I get the drift.
Yeah.
Right?
So what's your take on we have 3 mythical nonprofits,
okay,
right, that are funded by the state. Let's say one's for housing, one's for homelessness, one's for schools.
Right.
Right. From the Democrat perspective, correct me if I'm wrong, let's raise taxes so that we can funnel money to Sacramento, so Sacramento can fund money back to these nonprofits. Does it make more sense? Because let's say one of those nonprofits is something that I am not as impassioned about, right? Those particular 3 I am, but
right.
Let's just say that the green hole, the 3-horned toad that's in there, I'm not quite as impassioned about.
Right.
The Republican perspective would be, let's not send our tax money to Sacramento.
Let's give it straight to the organization.
Straight to the organization.
The ones that you're passionate about. Yeah.
And I think there's sort of interesting because when you look at the amount of donation money given, you would think that the Democrats, being socially, expansive,
right,
donate more money to,
right.
They don't. The Republicans do.
Right.
Now, that's a pretty broad statement, and
because
because I'm sitting in your
right
studio here, but
right. The studio. That's a nice way to put it.
But I think if we're paying 9% taxes on the fourth largest economy in the world, and yet we have these significant social issues, I don't think that the money is being well spent to get to the root cause of the issues.
Well, yeah.
So is homelessness because we don't have affordable housing?
No,
I don't think it is.
No, it's not, because homelessness is an issue, and again, I'll be straight up.
Because that's sort of your world right now.
My world right now is I've learned a lot, and this goes back to the '60s when a certain former movie star was governor, and I'll just say that passed an act that kind of emptied out that made it.
I thought that was when he was I thought that was when he was president.
No, that was when he was governor of California. He did that, and I can't I can't think of the name of the bill. The lantern bill. Okay, so they passed that, and what happened was it stopped. The intentions were good. It stopped the timeless, like the warehousing of people with mental health and facilities that it was like, let's just put them here and forget about it. Right. So it emptied out into the streets, and it's only gotten worse since then. Now the biggest problem with homelessness, you could go down the street here and go give everyone a key to a brand new house. Say, here you go. Fuck that. I don't want that. I like not having any responsibilities, right?
Right.
So I think homelessness is something that there's got to be a way to look at it to where we can, and I don't think Democrats are going to handle it any better than Republicans right now, because I think
we have a problem. How are we going to fix
it? Yeah, we got to look at it. Yeah, as that.
So, what's your take on the proliferation of foster care that ends at 18? Now you have a foster child who has bounced around from foster home to foster home. Do you think they're adequately prepared at 18 to get a job or go to school, have a place to live? No, that's the direct course into homelessness.
Right.
Because their buddies who are a year or two older than them, they're following their footsteps, and they're end up in encampment. In these encampments, so we have to even take a step further back from the mental health problem to the foster problem.
And again, then we can go even further back than the foster problem, and we can say that the pro-life folks who are only pro-life until it's born,
right?
Because they're like, save the fetus, fuck the child, right? It's like once. Yeah. So there's got to be some, I guess, some type of safety net. That's where I'm at. I think there's got to be an oversight of stuff. Now, it could be Democrat, it can be Republican, but the problem is with government and taxes, for the same reason that you and I pay taxes, and it goes to Sacramento as opposed to our like specific things. I'll tell you, Jumpstart. Jumpstart is a great example. I raise money for Jumpstart like on a regular basis, right? Thousands of dollars. UC came in and said, you know what? Yeah, thank you. You got that $1,000. You got that donation of $1,000 written to you. That's awesome. Guess what? We're going to take $400 off the top. Yeah. So then that becomes $600. But that's the same thing with government. It's like it goes and you got to pay.
Is that why in LA Unified School District it takes 4 guys 8 hours to fill one pothole on a playground?
But that's Caltrans.
No, pothole on a playground. Yeah,
I know, but
union.
That's a union, but that's Caltrans too. That's anywhere around here. That's this whole concept that, yeah, that's unions. And to be honest with you, I was a union person my whole life, but I'll tell you what, I paid my dues at the union when I worked at UCI. When that thing came where they laid me off, the union didn't do shit for me, and it was a shitty union. Yeah. And unions, so they're in. This is where I go, and here you go. I'm getting a powerful thirst. Okay. You can hold it so they can see the label. It's Mother's.
Mother's.
Good drinking. So, to me, unions have lost. Like, unions did great things when they started.
Absolutely. My daughter's in union. She's well protected as a teacher, but
people get involved in it at levels, and they don't do it for workers' rights. They do it for greed.
Yeah. Think about how much money the head of a union makes.
Yeah. Well,
how much money does the CEO of United Healthcare make?
Exactly. Well, yeah. How much
for-profit healthcare?
Yeah. Blue Shield.
That is an oxymoron.
Yeah.
For-profit healthcare is an oxymoron.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying we should have a single payer system, but when your retirement fund is tied to a stock that's in your portfolio, that's part of United or Anthem or fill in the blank, because they're a for-profit,
right?
And your healthcare decisions are being made
by them.
That if you don't have a procedure, it increases their
profits.
Yeah. Which helps your retirement because you've got this.
Well, yeah, but
that is a problem, I think, that is ridiculous.
Yes, and that's the socialist in me is going to say that's capitalism.
It is cap. So, but let's look at this. They cap the providers. So the people who are doing the work are capped.
Okay.
They can't.
They can't get. Yeah.
They can't unless they go out of completely go to a true capitalistic program, and then then it's the question of who can afford healthcare, right?
Right.
We have a single payer system in California. It's just screwed up.
You know what? I'll tell you what. On unemployment, I looked into doing that.
Oh.
As much as I paid, and then I had deductibles on top of that, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is so. Yeah, it is. It's still for profit. It's still not. It's for, as you say, the head of these companies, these conglomerates. There.
And that's what drives our government decisions. Right?
Right.
In my opinions, don't drive government decisions.
No, it's the people who bring the money.
Yeah. And whether we're talking about my elimination diet for COVID versus General Mills, or are we talking about Monsanto and
Monsanto. Yeah, these are So for me, I look at let's look at Walmart as my example. Okay. You got Walmart. I will not set foot in Walmart. I will not set foot in Walmart. My wife doesn't go to Walmart. And not because I don't tell her, you better not go to Walmart. She's been to Walmart.
She'd kick your ass.
She kicked my ass, that's true. But, so you have Walmart. So Walmart, and again, this is government and business, kind of. So Walmart gets subsidies to go into a community and build a store because they're creating jobs. That's okay. Now, so then they come into the community and they say, hey, we're hiring at Walmart, right? So then Walmart, your new hire packet as an employee of Walmart includes a food stamp application because they openly tell you, we're not going to pay you a livable wage. Now, they built the store on government subsidies. And this is a Republican this has been a Republican kind of thing. So we're going to give Sam Walton all this money.
Right.
And Sam Walton's going to live high on the hog in where is it? Somewhere in Alabama or Arkansas, something.
Yeah.
You know, wherever it is. And but they openly say we're not going to pay you a livable wage. Now, free will. Do you say, okay, I'm looking at going hungry here because I don't have insurance. Well, and they won't even give you insurance half the time because they do this little sly thing that says, whoa.
Yeah, you're gonna work 29 hours a week.
Yeah, and then the other thing Walmart and Target does that pisses me off is this self-checkout nonsense, right? Albertsons got rid of it. They were smart. They got rid of it. So Target and Walmart do this thing, and they do self-checkout. And they only put 3 cashiers, like even now. Like, and they go, self-checkout's open. Yeah, you know what? That would mean you would lose your job, and then where's my discount for ringing my, checking my own, right, being my own cashier, right? It's like this thing, and so it's like they openly admit they don't give a rat's ass about the worker, as long as you turn a profit for them. And Walmart, I'm like, so. I guess Danielle went into Walmart years ago with a friend of hers. And her friend started telling this cashier, oh, her husband doesn't like her going to Walmart. Oh, boy. And I guess the cashier turned and said, you tell your husband that this and this and this, and Walmart's the greatest place to work. And I'm like, and I wanted to go in there and just tell this lady, you know what? And I thought, I feel bad because she's actually buying it. She thinks that's her American dream.
It might be.
It might be, yeah.
And that's okay. You know, who are we to judge?
Exactly, okay. But I think that if the government's going to subsidize Walmart or anywhere else, then they need to pay a livable wage. That's double dipping. That's corporate welfare promoting welfare for all of us. Now, as someone who believes in government assistance, 2019, I filed for unemployment. First time in my 58 years on this planet that I've ever claimed unemployment. I didn't like it. I felt ashamed in a way. Now, the fact that they gave me like $700 extra because of COVID kind of helped that shame kind of went away a little bit, right?
And that's why we're in the world we are today.
Right. But I honestly, to me, I never claimed it. Mm-hmm. And I felt like, I'm not going to lose sleep over it because it's like but to get any kind of health care was like, was bullshit. My only option was to get a job. Mm-hmm. And even now, I'm woefully underpaid. Like, they're asking me to deal with and I need to be careful what I talk about, but let's talk about above pay grade. Right. And, so it's like, I think, so yeah, we can look at Democrats and their social welfare programs, but we got to look at, and again, the whole point of this is about removing that partisanship.
Yeah. And I completely agree with what you're saying. My perspective, though, is how much should we rely on the government subsidy versus the worker subsidy? In other words, how much should we expect a worker to work, and how much should we subsidize somebody to build? For example, a buddy of mine is a developer, and his specialty is going into toxic waste facilities that are old buildings that are now toxic.
Right.
And he cleans them up and provides opportunities within the community for a safe environment for work. So his new project, I was talking with him yesterday, is up in the Pacific Northwest, and it's 1.5 million square feet.
Wow.
Space.
Wow.
Most of it's got lead-based paint.
Right.
So they're going to spend $100 a foot cleaning it up, and What would have gone in there would have been an Amazon warehouse. But what they're going to do is split it up and be able to provide space at a cost ratio that a small business can afford.
Okay.
So to me, that makes, I mean, that is 100% venture capital money.
Yeah.
To me, it makes complete sense for the community.
Yeah.
And he's sort of driven by his intrinsic reward to help communities.
Exactly. And you can't the government can't make somebody go, I want to help you.
Right.
And whether you're Democrat or Republican, it's like, so that, but then, so like, I agree completely. And I think, like, for me, I'm probably one of Amazon best shoppers or whatever, because it's like, I just, whatever. But
between the two of us, we could open our own recycling.
Yeah. And I think that for me, small business is where it's at. I mean, that's the community.
Yeah.
Well, that's local money. You buy local, you keep it local, you employ locals.
Yeah.
But small business today is not a realistic. I mean, I don't know that it's a realistic thing in California, at least.
I completely agree, and I mean, I live that world because I just made a
right.
fairly major change in the way I
right.
do what I do, and because small independent practitioners right. are a thing of the past.
Right, and well, yeah, I'll tell you, one of my orthopedic surgeons will say his initials were JM. I think you know who I'm talking about. One of the reasons I loved going to this guy was because he was had his office, had his own x-ray machine, albeit it was probably 80 years old, but, had it.
Right.
And I felt like when I was going, I was talking to him. He heard what I was talking about, and he sold his practice and went to St. Jude Providence and is now in there. And I went and saw him. So, how do you like it? And he's like, God, it sucks. Because now I can't prescribe something to someone. But again, that's the perspective.
Right.
In talking to you, I know, like you had said, this gives you a little freedom.
Yeah.
I mean, you've ran that business for how many years? And
15.
We're not saying the name.
Yeah, 15.
Okay. So, geez, I've pretty much been...
I was in business for 25.
Right.
And then bought that portion, ran that business for 15. And now, but it's... I'm not 40 years old anymore.
Right. Well,
we're two old white dudes that no one can hire. We're unemployable because we're two white dudes.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that it's. I'd like to say I hate to say that.
But I.
But I am. I think it's white. I think it's. I think I'm old. I think that's my thing. But I don't act my age. But I hate blaming race for anything, right? Because I think that.
Well, I think, if I walk into a job as an applicant, and I have a 35-year-old with the same license that I have,
right,
female, I don't care what race,
yeah,
irrelevant, they will have a hard time justifying hiring me.
Oh yeah.
Versus even though I have 25 years more experience.
Welcome to the world of employment and higher education. Because it's like, and so I think, but that's been a thing for a while. And so here's the thing.
My question though is, should they hire her versus me?
I think they should hire whoever's better qualified. And okay, I'm going to get in trouble here with some people because I've said that before. Well, that doesn't, I'm like, I don't think you could be polka dot as I'm concerned if you do the job better. And then I've said, wait a minute. I've been told, wait a minute, John, you can't say that. So
my last, because I've involved with a variety of organizations, I am fortunate that I get to listen and have to take diversity and sexual harassment training programs constantly, it seems like. And depending on the organization, will sort of dictate the flavor of the educational product.
Right.
One of the products that I had to listen to, or I was required by the state to listen to on diversity and sexual harassment, the theme was, don't hire for your culture, change your culture for your hire.
Okay.
Now, you're familiar with my culture.
Right.
Would that work in my organization?
Don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
I don't think so either. And yet, here we are being driven to make these types of, we're being told to make these types of decisions.
Okay.
Which would be clearly, detrimental to my organization.
Right. And 60 years ago, if you were, that was done on a regular, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
But if you know what my culture looks like.
Right.
I have more women than men. My wage earner's female.
Yeah. I mean, I ran Jumpstart, remember?
Yeah.
I had 75% of my students were young women between the age of 18 and 25. And I think when I first started there and they came in and saw me, they kind of had like, whoa, right? But I think, like, for me, the thing was, and I'll say this, I say this constantly, I had to be on my toes, right? Because when I was hired, I was 46, white, middle-aged guy. I had the brains enough to never meet with someone in my office with the door closed. It was always having someone else with them. But I used to have to do this thing, and they all thought I was the meanest guy in the world. They'd come up, oh, John. And I go, we don't hug in the workplace, right? It's like, I'm sorry, you're an employee of mine. I'll say, great job, shake your hand. I'll do a lot of things. I'll give you a high five. Knuckles. We're not hugging. And that's so mean. Like, I'll tell you what, you graduate, I'll give you a hug. That was my thing.
Right.
I had a student on campus one time. She was visiting with her parents and saw me and comes running across with her arms open to give me a hug, and I straight armed her. And she says, oh, this is my mom and dad. I go, hey, how you doing? And I guess he turned to her and he goes, I guess he doesn't like hugs. I said, no. I'm smart. I'm not doing that, right? That's like not okay. And even my professors in grad school would say, John, give him a hug. And I'm like, you of all people should know that's not okay.
Well, academics is such a foreign world
for a lot of people.
For a lot of people, especially those who are teaching and have been teaching there for a long time.
Well, and you and I unloaded to you about a lot of crap I went through in grad school because of my age, my race. I had a target on my back for
old white dude. You don't belong.
And any chance they got, they went after me, and I was like, and I still have 3 or 4 really good friends that I talked to from that, but for the most part, I was like, that's not okay. You're the problem. And so, like, for me, I think I pissed them off when they asked me to introduce myself. And what's your PPP? And I go, what's that? Preferred personal pronoun. Okay, now see, here's the thing. And this is kind of interesting for me. We grew up in a world. Gender was not a spectrum.
Right.
And I'm not complaining that it is now. I'm not complaining that, right? But there are a lot of people our age who refuse to even acknowledge that. I got people who will sit there and say, "You're just being woke. That's the worst thing." Okay, and like to me, woke. If that's the worst thing you're going to call me, that's not really an insult. That means I'm willing to try to understand where this other person's coming from. That's how I view it.
Yeah, I was going to say, we might disagree with the definition.
Okay.
Because I wish if everybody defined wokeness as by that definition, I think we'd be in a way better place.
Okay.
But I don't think.
What's your definition?
My definition is sort of on par with the far right Trumpers that, you know, if you're not with me, you're against me.
Okay.
And if you're a white police officer, you're against me.
Right.
You know, and there's some really bad white police officers out
there. Yeah.
Horrendous.
Yeah.
But there's some really good ones.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. But that's the thing. You can't judge all of them because of
bad ones.
And so
you can't judge every African American young man
by exactly. But that's people lump that in.
Yeah.
And I go back to this. This is the red meat of the base. Brittany Griner. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now this is I'll say my take. Okay. I don't know if you're going to agree with me or not, but this whole thing, she hates America. Okay. First of all, she never said she hated America. She brought 2 gold medals home, represented us proudly, right?
Yeah.
But it seems like today's Republican Party is so lacking any kind of nuance, right?
Right.
And it's red meat to the base.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, if she made the statement that I don't know that the national anthem is really something that really respects me or my culture or my people. And so, yeah, maybe I have a little problem with that. To me, that's American.
I suspect she'll have a different opinion today.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think she'll have a different opinion. You know, and you know, so you talk about the opportunity for, you know, a crazy dude.
Yeah.
Right? To use somebody as an example.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't think of a worse example.
Right.
Than what Putin did with her.
Yeah.
But you know, I think it is. Sometimes it takes a little experience.
Right.
To learn.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I think very differently today than I did 20 years ago.
Right. Well, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we all grow. We all shift we all hope to grow, but we all shift our perspectives on life, on everything based on our experiences, right? And so I think for me, it was like, again, I got into this discussion with someone. So I got sent something, I think it was Friday night, and it kind of pissed me off. And they said, your thoughts? And I was like, well, first of all, it was from somebody, obviously some kind of really right-wing extremist guy saying, you know, she hates America. He left a Marine behind who loves America, who gave his life for America. It's like, well, and I've talked to a couple of veterans, and they're going, he kind of was guilty, you know? But this whole, it's so much easier to say, well, you know, she's got a problem with the national anthem. It's easier to say she hates America, right? To me, Colin Kaepernick, these guys taking a knee, that was a non-violent way to protest.
Right.
They knew what they were doing. There was no violence. There was no, this is like, I'm making a statement here. And supposedly the story is he spoke to a veteran who told him that was okay. That's supposedly the story behind that, okay? He felt that was a respectful way to protest. Now, it wasn't out in the streets, you know, like smash windows in, right. So for me, they can't win for losing. You know, if you protest the way they want you to protest, which is not protesting at all, right? And so it gets into this weird kind of like place in this dimension.
Yeah.
I've told Jacob all along, I say, look, you stand up for the national anthem when we're at a baseball game, I sing, that's fine. But also part of being a patriot is openly acknowledging that we've done some shitty stuff in this world.
There's faults.
Yeah.
There's faults.
And I'm not saying, God, America sucks. I hate America. I think America's got problems. I think America's had problems. I think America's done some shitty stuff throughout history. But I'm still like not gonna say nobody can tell me I hate America, right?
Right.
So
no, I agree. It's you know, despite what we have done as a country,
right?
We're pretty. It's you know we're it's a pretty good place.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I took Jake. We went on before the pandemic. We went on the last Women's March in Santa Ana, and I was trying to explain to Jacob, like, look, we're marching the streets of Santa Ana. We're with 20,000 people. This is amazing. And I go, you know, Jacob, there's some countries that might turn this corner and there'd be a line of gunfire waiting for them. So you need to appreciate what we got here, right?
Right.
Now, the video we watched before we started this discussion, that gentleman, when we got into an argument, and his whole thing was, the only thing you learned to do in college was hate America. So it gets to this, and again, so people equate education with elite.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's like it's knowledge. And the Republican Party of Trump wants uneducated dumbasses who are going to buy the fact that, you know what, he couldn't do it this week because the carpets were being cleaned, but he's going to invite you to Mar-a-Lago next week.
Yep.
Right?
Oh,
and so I go back. So like, so, okay, for me, and this is kind of where we talk about like ingrained. This is my response, I guess. So 1972, I was in 6th grade. Had some interesting classmates in 6th grade. I won't say his name. Well, I'll say his first name, Timothy. Was Dick Nixon's nephew. Okay. Mary Kay Letourneau was my classmate in 6th grade. You know who she was, right? You know who her father was? John Schmidt, the Bircher. He taught criminal justice at Santa Ana. Big time Bircher. My father, who was a lifelong Democrat, but my father liked to piss people off. My father...
Because the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
He used to do things like, we looked through his stuff and there's like where he joined organizations that were considered un-American just to fuck with people. And he was a brilliant man. He and I didn't get along real well. When I got older, I think for me, once he was gone, I realized what a good man he was, and I've even kind of turned into him in some ways. So, 72, it was the 6th grade mock election in class for McGovern versus Nixon. And speaking of McGovern, a latter gentleman who was one of McGovern's security guys, Secret Service guys, was the criminal justice professor at Santa Ana College. 99, 2000, I worked for him, and he made a shitload of money because he sued Brad Gates.
Oh, really?
In fact, I got a really interesting book he wrote, The Twisted Badge, where he dared to run against Brad Gates, and there's a whole lot of shit happened. And it was always funny because in his office he had this giant check along the walls. Thanks, Brad. uh, really interesting guy. Loved this guy. Ultra conservative guy. I used to love to pick his brain. Right? Used to love to have conversations because he was old school. He was like, I had respect for him because I knew he stood for something.
Yeah.
Right? So, 6th grade, we had a mock election for Nixon versus McGovern. 30 kids in the class. 29 people voted for Nixon. 1 person voted for McGovern. We got the results. And I said, damn straight, I'm not voting for that crook. Well, Nixon's nephew and his little thug, jackbooted little thug friends came over and beat the snot out of me, right? So that was ingrained in me at an early age. That, like, Republicans just, I don't like it, right? I think my politics were shaped by probably my older brother, my brother-in-law. Well, because again, I think having my older brother and older sister who were my older brother was born in 48, so he was a hippie. My sister was born in, I think, 56, so she was kind of that generation. So I had a lot of that influence. So for me, it was counterculture. It was about protesting. It was about standing up for things. We used to, and this was back in the day in California when you could load up in a pickup truck and drive on the freeway and not have to worry about anything. You just hang out in the back of a pickup truck. And we drive up to Wilshire and do the smoke in on the steps of the federal building to protest to get legalized marijuana. That was my introduction to that stuff. Now through, like, I've met Jesse Jackson twice, met John Lewis once. And so for me, I feel like I'm like a late born child of the 60s. Like, I was born in 61.
Right. Yeah.
So baby boomers stopped 64. Yeah.
You're a baby boomer.
Yeah. And I just kind of grasped that, hold on to that whole other thing. Now, I ran around with people, when I was 12, I was running around with people who were in their 20s and 30s. That was always my gig. I just liked running around with those people. I liked their music, hence you see my record collection. And it's looking pretty shoddy right now because I got all these out. But, that's my collection. I mean, my books, my everything I'm into is based in that. It's rooted from that culture.
Yeah.
So for me, it wasn't about learning to hate America. And that always puzzled me that guy said that. Because it's like, no, it was about learning that the term American Studies confuses a lot of right-wingers, a lot of conservative people, because they think American Studies, shit, yeah, go America. It's like, no, it's about diversity. It's about what makes us.
Right.
So what was your story? What was your big influence?
Growing up, I didn't have the influence that you had.
Okay.
I was too busy running around baseball fields and running around football fields and up and down around tracks, and that was me all the way into college. And I can just remember when Jimmy Carter was elected, and kind of what a shit show that we were, gas prices, gas lines. It was like,
yeah.
What is, and I wasn't smart enough to know why. I just knew that this doesn't make any sense, and interest rates are 12%, for a house, and I'm at that point in college, but I'm still kind of in that athlete mentality, right?
Right.
I'm focused on making it over the next hurdle, and so when a guy like Ronald Reagan comes along, who's a good speaker, a good leader. I was like, wow, this makes sense. So I was largely influenced by Ronald Reagan really until I had this great conversation with my daughter, who was a political science major and a social international studies major at UCLA, and and it's sort of like Reagan did some great things, and he did some terrible things.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, it's like I look back and when Bill Clinton was in office, I was like, oh, this guy drives me crazy. Today, I'm like, where's Bill?
Well, yeah, where's Reagan?
Yeah.
I'm like, exactly. I'm like, I miss Reagan, I miss Bush. I think I would vote for Cheney for president right now. Now, it would be Liz, but right. I mean, like, if you had told me.
Yeah. So those are so that was sort of the influence for me was, as a fiscal conservative and a social reformist, who's representing. And, and I like to think I have somewhat of an appropriately pointed moral compass. So,
right.
When politicians are doing things that are, less than ideal.
Yeah. Yeah. And sadly, right now, that's what most of them are doing.
All of them.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm going to say 90% of them. I think there's a handful of them that are actually trying to do the right thing. I find so for me, Carter, God, shitty times, but you know what? He's a good man.
And he is unequivocally, in my opinion, the best post-president
Yeah.
this country has ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, building houses. He's out there. I've always said,
an amazing, amazing man.
These other guys are like out dedicating libraries, and he's out swinging a hammer for Habitat for Humanity.
Exactly.
And I got to be honest with you, when he was in office, I had a mad crush on Rosalind. Rosalind was
you might
amazing.
Still have a crush on her.
I only got a crush on one woman.
I know.
I've only had a crush on one woman for the last 20 years, and that's the little lady. So I love her to death, but I think Carter got the short stick in a lot of stuff. Well, I think there were times that just it was a time kind of like Biden after Trump, right? It was like this was Carter after Nixon. Ford was kind of a shit show. Yeah. But it was like we voted for someone, we expected this we're going to Valhalla kind of thing from Carter because he was pure. He was
right.
I have a friend of mine who was on his nuclear regulatory committee. And post-president, he's amazing.
Yeah.
I had a problem with him. Again, I didn't vote for him in 76. I wasn't old enough to vote till 80.
Right.
And this is the other funny thing. My 18th birthday, this is why I take it seriously. Women's League of Voters showed up at my front door to register me to vote. And I thought, wow, they don't do that to everybody. And this was like on my 18th birthday. They just showed up at my house, and I said,
and I voted. They show up at my house.
Yeah, see, so I've taken that seriously. I mean, it's like for me, it's like not something I take lightly. I go back to what you said. We have very little voice in everything. I would like it for us to have a bit more of a say, but I also feel like I want to complain too much, and if I don't vote, I got no right to complain.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm not going to miss a vote.
Yeah.
I may not, you voted, you voted for Hillary, which makes sense. I didn't vote for either one of them. I did vote.
Right.
I voted for a guy in New Mexico, but
yeah, well, that's you got to do what you got to do. Like I said, I came real close to voting for Perot one year.
Yeah, yeah.
I even had a Perot bumper sticker.
I will say though that
and boy, I dodged that bullet.
I don't think Perot would have been toxic.
I think he would have done better than. Yeah, he wouldn't have been toxic. I think. What really shot Perot in the foot was, I think, his BP pick. I can't remember his name, but he was kind of a hoot to watch. And well, Clinton pissed me off. There was a lot of things Clinton did that pissed me off.
Oh, when he was in office, drove me nuts. Out of office, looking back, hindsight's 2020. Man.
Yeah.
It's like I tell people this all the time. You can. I would not sit down and have lunch with Trump for $1 million.
Hell no.
I would love to sit down and have lunch and drink a beer with Barack Obama. I disagree with 95% of his policy. I think he's a good person.
Yeah.
I think he's smart. I think he'd be fun to talk to. He'd be not quite, but almost as much fun as you.
Okay. Well, I'm 1 day older than him.
Which you know where that puts me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. You're a couple months older than him, but I always liked that he was like August 4th, 61, and I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. I think Obama was a good guy. I think, again, I didn't agree with everything he did. I thought he brought about some. I'll be honest with you. I think he could have acted quicker on marriage equality. I would have liked to have seen him take more of a stand. I think there was a couple things going on that, and I'm not going to get into details, but but there is that idea that it's okay to not believe in everything they do. It's like, because that's what separates us from the cult.
Yeah. No, exactly. That's exactly my point. Just because I may not agree with his position on policy doesn't make him somebody that I wouldn't want to hang out with.
Right.
It's just like we disagree on a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It's great. I love disagreeing with you.
It's entertaining.
Exactly. But it's,
life is boring if you get somebody who's just going to say, you're right all the time.
Or you're wrong all the time.
Yeah.
You're wrong, I'm right.
I mean, but this is the thing. It's the nuances. There's a lot of nuance to all of this, and that's the perspective that it seems to be lost on a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's because if you're not on my team, you're against me.
Yeah.
And that's, that's what we have to get away from.
Right.
We have to get back to
what's good for.
Here's our problem. Let's fix it. Here's our problem. Let's fix it.
Yeah.
Let's figure out how your group and my group can be one group to fix this problem. And that's, and until we get there, we're going to keep sort of spinning our wheels, and we're going to have, people like you and me are going to bitch and complain and talk and have great conversations.
But nothing's going to change.
Nothing's going to change.
Yeah. And so, like, for me, and I want to get back to woke, okay? Because, so this person who called me out on woke, I think sometimes a lot of times it's like this woke, they see woke as guilt.
Yeah. Well,
I don't feel guilty about anything.
Yeah.
I mean, and so for me, again, my definition of woke is one that I try to walk in someone else's shoes.
And the way I look at woke is this severe, cancel culture that goes with it. And that's the issue I have.
That is a big problem. Yes, it is. Now, when we get to this cancel culture, and I guess that what Trump came out, I guess today or yesterday, and said that when he gets in. So here's my take on, like, we could say the cancel culture, or this idea of free speech. Right, free speech exists, and and again, Supreme Court decided this. Free speech is great, right? But free speech does not include you going into a crowded movie theater and shouting fire. And I think, and it goes beyond the COVID thing. I think this nonsense about fake elections. I think that is, if somebody ever needed to be canceled, I think it would need to be Trump and these people that are boasting that. And I don't have a problem with saying you can't go on a public platform and say the shit is rigged.
I don't disagree. The public platform, boy, just open a huge can of worms. The public platform where I have an issue is some 12-year-old, girl posting something on Instagram, and 10 years later, she gets fired from her job as an editor because of something she said as a 12 or 13 or 14-year-old.
I agree with that. That's bullshit.
Yeah, that's completely ridiculous. Now, talking about public platforms, what's your take on your best friend Elon? And
whoever said he was my best friend. Shit. You know what? I'll tell you what. When he bought it, I left it. I'm not gonna put up with that. And Twitter's a waste anyway. Facebook, to me, the only thing I get out of Facebook is I post shit that pisses people off. And again, I go back to what I've said before about the prostate cancer thing. It's like, I will beat this because I got a lot of people left to piss off. But again, Facebook to me is something, it's about, you're not limited to what? 400 characters. But it's, so I used to go Twitter nightly because it was Kevin Sorbo. Remember Hercules from the 90s on Channel 5?
Yeah.
He is one of the most idiotic, any Kevin Sorbo fans out there, sorry. He parrots Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I used to go on just to get, and I'd go, hey, Kevin, geez, it's good to hear what a never has been wannabe star from a second-rate television series has to say about politics, right? And it always cracked me up because Twitter would say, a lot of people would think that what you're saying is mean. You have a chance to edit it. I go, nope. But when Musk took it over, it took the fun out of it. Yeah. I mean, and he's taking credit for inventing Tesla and all this shit. He's not the one who did it. This bullshit, him and Bezos and this flying, it's like, we got problems here. That money could be sunk in to dealing with issues here, Republican or Democrat.
Again,
yeah,
problem
solved. Yeah. And when I hear Musk and Bezos talking about, well, our idea is we want to have a floating dump out in space. So, because the landfills are all getting full here. So it's like, not enough that we fucked this planet up. Now we're just going to start shipping the stuff out in the middle of space. Let it float around, right? Who knows? Maybe it'll land someday in a country that we're not too fond of. And then we can take it over. And see, that leads to the old, as an American Studies major, there's the old 1897 Chicago World's Fair where Frederick Jackson Turner, this famous theoreticist or whatever you want to talk, had presented this theory that America began on the East Coast and it expanded out west. By 1897, they said the frontier had ended. Officially, it was over. But America was built on growing and expanding. So what happens when we hit the coast and there's nothing left to expand on? And we grew like a virus. So now we start occupying foreign countries, Iraq, Iran. Let's occupy space, right? So that's kind of that theory. I think the Eagles album, Hotel California, there's a great song that talks about that in like just an amazing thing. And I can't think of the name of the song, but it's just an amazing, like, to listen to that. So like for me, when they start talking about shooting our trash into space, it's like, see, that's again, problem, solve it. And that's not solving shit.
No. Yeah, I hear you.
So, what were you going to say about Musk? I'm curious.
No, you know what? I just think he's a knucklehead.
Yeah. He's a celebrity, and when and that's the problem. Kanye West, all these people, it's like, when are we going to stop voting? Like, these people are only famous because we give them attention.
Yeah.
I'm proud to say I never watched an episode of what was it, the Jenner's show.
Oh yeah, I know.
You know.
Yeah.
And to be honest, uh, what was his first name before he became Caitlyn? Bruce. That pisses me off because in a world, and I work with folks who deal with gender dysphoria, and in a world where people struggle with that, that is a real issue. As sad as it is, and as a baby boomer, I'm one of the few that will acknowledge it. I think you would acknowledge it.
Absolutely.
And it's an issue. And for me, the fact that this guy just said, "Oh, I got money, I'm just going to go do it overnight," right? And then he still makes freaking statements. He misgenders people. That's a really big deal. Like I've learned a lot about this stuff about the last few years, right? Working in higher ed and all this other thing, these other fields. So to me, that there are people who struggle with this on a daily basis, and there's that money thing again.
Right.
That you can just kind of say, okay, yeah, guess what? I'm this now, and I've got a platform. I'm going to run for governor. And yeah, so that's kind of that stuff. But again, we make them famous.
We do, and it's frustrating to no end when I see that type of energy spent on nothingness.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How a Jenner girl can be, a billionaire.
Yeah.
Because people watch her put her makeup on.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Because it's like it's this idea that they live vicariously through them in some ways. I think, and I think in some ways we as a society have made that where that's a requirement. You can't just. It's not okay to just go work, live an honorable life, work, provide for your family. You gotta want stuff, and you gotta worship the people, for lack of a better term, the false gods.
Yeah. So the $1 million question, what came first, the chicken or the egg, right?
Right.
We have this caste system in this country. People won't really admit to it.
Right.
And those in a caste above will propagate the inability for somebody in the caste below to move up.
Right.
So those in the caste below are always digging for the ones above.
Right. They want them.
Yeah. And so I think that's really what, from a psychosocial perspective, is a driving force for, this proliferation of stupidness.
Well, yeah, because
you've got the wanters and the haters all going after.
Yeah, and because it's like, well, if you get this pair of shoes, your life's gonna be, and that kind of thing. And I think so, but society has been brainwashed to think that that's what we're supposed to do, right? We put people on a pedestal. We view people like, wow, you're awesome and all this. And again, I go back to Trump as the perfect example. What time is it?
Yeah, it's 10 after 8.
We got about 20 minutes.
We can wrap this up pretty quick.
Yeah, I think so. Well, we were shooting for 6:30 to 8:30. So.
Oh, we were?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So but we don't have to be a slave to time. If we're wrapping up, we can wrap up, and I'm gonna kind of do it. My plan is to upload it on YouTube Saturday.
Okay.
And I'll send you a link.
Okay.
And then we'll go from there. This is the first I've actually got Luster, that John Luster is going to come on and present a case for veganism for all. And I'm going to say, I like meat. And that's all it's going to be. This is veganism. I want eggs. I want meat. I want like dairy. Like, you know. So, but, you know, so, yeah. And then I figure I'm going to reach out to my buddy Joey Harris, and that may be a Zoom one. But, you know, we'll see how it goes. Like I said, this is the first one.
It's been fun.
If this works out, it works out to a point.
Maybe you'll have 105 followers.
I've got 118 now.
Okay.
And, you know, this works out. We may have where I may have cameras and a little remote. I can like zoom in on your face. We'll see. But no, I think, like, I agree with you. I think that we need to stop thinking about D's and R's.
Yeah.
And start thinking about us. I would love to hear one politician come out and say, my only special interest is you, and mean it. Will that ever happen?
No,
not in my lifetime.
Because who can afford to do that? And the ones that can afford to do that live in a different world.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. I mean, they're not
us.
Yeah.
You know, they're not us.
But that's, again, you know, I always love, like, I think when we go back and look at, that's television and computer, and the internet has done this. Because I think you look back at, iPhone, all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I look back at, you know, FDR, right? Or even, you know, Lincoln. Lincoln wrote a speech on the fucking back of an envelope, you know?
Yeah.
And it wasn't about, like, oh, give me the makeup, right? You know, and this shit. It was about, like, I'm going to do what I got to do, and under the radar. And I'm not going to have 1 million people watching me.
Right.
And I think that was the saddest thing about Trump, was when you watched, there was a picture of him after he left a rally, and they had his collar open, and you could see the makeup stains all around his white shirt. God, what have we become?
Be clear, I put no makeup on for the lights today.
I have been doing my moisturizer in the morning, and I do my eye gel every morning and every night, so I am working on that. I got my Retina A that I put on at night before I go to sleep. So I gotta, you know, get rid of the wrinkles. I tried to kind of get the shine off of my bald head, so, you know. But yeah, to be clear, no, I think it's been a great conversation.
Yeah, it's been fun.
I think we can. You feel like we've said enough. We've said our piece for tonight. I hope you plan on coming back at some time.
Absolutely, I'd love to come back. We can talk more.
We can talk. We may have a new, like, evil person to talk about next time. You know, a new clown.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't know that I want Biden running in 2024.
I agree. I keep waiting and again, I don't care the party. I don't care what party. I'm waiting for the 58-year-old leader to show up. Where's my 58-year-old leader?
Yeah.
58-year-old leader, not 50-year-old white male leader. You know what?
Somebody who's gonna, like,
I want a leader
that I can trust.
And
who's not gonna be an idiot.
Yeah.
And you know, but what gets me is, and again, like I said, I voted for Biden this time. I don't know that he could win a second term. I think he would against Trump.
I was going to say, the only way he wins a second term
is with Trump.
Is against Trump. So every Democrat in that world, they're cheering for Trump. Yeah.
I don't think Kamala I think she's kind of made some people mad. I think that I was glad to see we finally got a woman in a position. But again, I go back to my statement on Hillary Clinton. I don't think Hillary Clinton, I go back to what people thought. We owe it to Hillary, and she's a woman. We're gonna give her this, okay? And I'm not. I wasn't like saying she can't be president because she's a woman, but I'm like, we shouldn't make her president just because she is a woman.
Yeah, is she a leader? And I don't think she was necessarily a good leader.
No.
Condoleezza Rice would be a good leader.
To be honest, my stance has changed on Condoleezza Rice because I found out was reading my book on Willie Mays, my hero, and apparently Condoleezza Rice and her father and Willie Mays were very close. So, like, there's a Willie Mays connection. So I might vote for Condoleezza Rice. To be honest, if Liz Cheney, she won't run, no. I would vote for Liz Cheney.
Because she's an independent thinker.
Yeah.
She's actually a little too conservative for me, but she's an independent thinker.
But I think right now, I don't agree with her politics at all, but I think right now she's taking a stand. She's got more balls than any man in politics right now. She's definitely got bigger balls than McCarthy. And I keep hearing this where they're talking about that
the speaker doesn't have to be an elected person.
Right. And I keep hearing that Liz Cheney's name keeps coming up and Paul Ryan. And I wasn't a fan of Paul Ryan, but I think he's someone who would work together. I think Liz Cheney would work together. I think her being on the January 6th committee.
She's demonstrated that she's willing to again, be an independent thinker and work within the constraints of the organization.
Exactly. And that's what we need to do. And we need to get back to this where it's like, this animosity, this like, and again, it's like, Jacob's best friend, parents are Trumpers. Danielle and I, for the sake of Jacob's friendship, we don't talk politics with them. I can't, because we're not going to agree. And I have to go, you're not going to change my mind, and I'm not going to change yours. So why even try? Now, we used to have the Trump guy, the Trump pop-up stand over here in front of Dunkin' Donuts.
Right.
Every, day for a while. And I just, And the thing with that is that money wasn't, but see, they say this whole trading card thing. That's money. That's not his re-election thing. That's him getting money.
He's got to
pay his legal fees.
I was just going to say, he's got to pay the legal fees somewhere.
Yeah. And I'm hoping I get my indictments for Christmas. I'm not holding my breath, but I'm hoping they come down the pike. And as a decent human being, I hate to sound like I want to see somebody suffer, but I think as a decent human being, I don't think Donald Trump is a decent human being. I think karma is a bitch.
I was just going to say, you know what? People need to, when you row the boat,
you
go somewhere, and when you hit the land, you got to get off.
Yep.
And you know what? Wherever you row the boat, you got to accept where you go.
And I think that these folks, and so if we're going to go into old sayings, when you lay down with dogs, you get fleas, right?
Yeah.
And people, again, I think canceling people, cancel culture, like they go on this big thing about, well, we can't cancel him because what he believes in Trump. Well, so the guy was hanging with Trump. So the last one I heard, and then we'll stop, Brett Kavanaugh was hanging out partying with Matt Gaetz. So it's like, I'm wondering, drinking the beers like two frat brothers. See, that's what I don't want.
No.
I don't want frat brothers for my politicians.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have a problem with Clarence Thomas and Ginny Thomas. And Clarence Thomas needs to recuse himself from a lot of this stuff, but they're not going to.
Yeah, exactly.
See, we need to do something about this lifetime appointment on the Supreme Court.
16 years. 16 years, done. That's my opinion.
Well, I don't even think 16. I'd go 8, maybe 12.
No,
I don't necessarily want to pack the court.
Yeah. And I don't think I don't think we need to pack the court either, because It's the old, it comes around,
Yeah.
what goes around comes around, and that could be, an advantage today and a disadvantage tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think this idea of expanding the court, no, I think we need to leave it at 9, but I think we need to come up with some kind of term limits for it, because I think totally Clarence Thomas would be done.
Yeah, and he should be.
I don't want to get into that. On that note, thank you, Jim, it's been an inspiring conversation.
It's been fun.
I always love talking to you. Look at that. Just under